Hello, nation. Welcome to your destination for all things Lock Haven Athletics. It is the Haven Nation Show. I am your host, Nicholas Severini. Alongside me, Ryan States. We're coming to you live from the Bear Country Studios' basement in Avis, Pennsylvania. We were good enough to get into the building, but not on the first floor at least, Ryan. But Ryan States is alongside me. I don't know about you, Ryan. This is a show I've been thinking about doing for years. It's a podcast that I've been thinking about doing for years. I wanted to wait until I felt as if, from my perspective, I was a part of the school enough to do it. And now in my fourth year as a broadcaster for Lock Haven Athletics, I feel ready to go, Ryan. I know you're ready to go.
Yeah, it's funny. Your fourth year as a broadcaster, my fourth year as a student. We came to the school at the same time, and now we're getting to do this. To my knowledge, the first time something like this has ever been done here for sure. So I'm excited to get this started.
Well, it's so fun. I think it makes sense, this being the opening show, that we talk a little bit about the background, how this got started. As I said, this was something I've wanted to do forever. I always felt that, especially a school, even if it's a smaller Division II like Lock Haven in context, I always felt like there was an audience capable and there was enough interest to do a show to have one that just talks about Lock Haven. There are a couple other podcasts out there. D1 Rejects is the first thing that comes to mind. I know Gannon has their own show, but that's a little bit school-sponsored. There's not really a show dedicated to a singular school all the time. So we made one. And, the original plan, I remember, Ryan, was to do a show on Zoom. It's like, hey, why don't we just mess around once a week doing it on Zoom? We talked to my boss, Dave Stratton and Karen Stratton, about it, and they were like, oh, why don't you just use the studio? And there's a studio? There you go. So we have this lovely, beautiful fake brick behind us. We've got a lot of Jersey Shore stuff. Of course, we're also doing Jersey Shore this year. We tried to throw a little Lock Haven stuff out. But, yeah, here we are. We kind of threw it all together, and now we're here, Ryan.
And who knows, maybe as this goes on and we keep doing this, if this keeps up, we'll get more stuff in the background, cover up, like you said, some of this fake brick back here. But no, I'm excited to do this. This is something I thought about doing on my own as for freshman year. Lock Haven has a really good radio student-run department, so thought about doing this. Never really got it to work because I was the only one that would do it. You came to me about wanting to do this and wanting to talk about Lock Haven. You know how much I love talking about sports here and the school in general, so I'm really excited to get this started, man.
I think the best way to get this show started is to talk about what led us to Lock Haven. So I think that's the best way to start this program up. By the way, for those of you just tuning in for the first time, coming up next week, football preview. That's the big one. Coming up the rest of the show, we've got a field hockey preview to discuss. We're going to talk about a new member in the PSAC. And we're also going to have a countdown. We love lists. So let's get the people going. That's what gets the content aggregated. A list of the 5 programs we're most excited to watch this year. So that's coming up next. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what led us to Lock Haven. Ryan, I'm going to let you start because you've got a unique journey with this school. We talked about it off the air. I think it's time to put it on the record.
Yeah, so my dad went here in the 90s. Both my dad and my aunt, actually, who are twins, came here in the 90s. They both graduated from here. So ever since I was a kid, this is a school I was always interested in. I can remember those 8th, 9th grade years, they talked about, write on lists what colleges you're looking at or what colleges you want to apply to in the future. This was always number one for me. I never even visited the school when I was looking at it. I put my application in, I got accepted, and right away, this is where I knew I wanted to be. I had a lot of good memories hearing stuff from my dad about being here, and I decided to come make some of my own.
For me, it's much different. I never went to this school. I am not a student. I graduated from West Virginia University, go Mountaineers, and I was putting my name out. What was that?
Yeah, boo. I'm a Penn State fan. They're basically rivals at this point, right? I mean,
are we going to have a Penn State rant on the first episode?
No.
I think that's more like, no, we can't
That's
do that.
deeper into it,
I
yeah.
can't do that. Also, for my future job opportunities, I don't think I should. Anyway, so I get a gig at Bucknell University to do their soccer. But that's not enough for me to move out into Pennsylvania. I'm from Jersey. It's not enough. So I asked around a little bit for who wanted gigs. And Dave Stratton, who's my boss now, still my boss at the Bear, where you're tuning into this, he said, okay, I'll give you 9 field hockey games and 5 lacrosse games in the spring. And he called me while I was working at Walmart. I was in the freezer at Walmart. I don't know if there's a lot of Walmart heads out there. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about,
Yep.
where it's like 2 degrees out, but it's the only time I'm allowed to be on my phone and get away with it.
Yep.
So I accept the gig, and I guess they liked me. They moved me right to basketball and wrestling in the spring, football the next year, and then the rest is history. I became a bald eagle lifer.
Yeah, I
kinda
remember.
just like that.
I remember because I remember my freshman year was talking about doing, because I had done some basketball stuff in high school with my friend Nathan Mather. We had both done it. He's now doing stuff over at Villanova. But when I came here, I talked about wanting to continue that and wanting to do broadcasting for basketball. And they mentioned to me that they had this new guy coming in who was scheduled to do, I think you were doing all the PSAT games.
That's
You
true.
weren't doing that at a conference,
right.
but you were starting with all the PSAT games. And I remember meeting you for the first time there. I think it was the home opener. I forget who they played, but I remember meeting you for the first time there. And then you came back, did football, and since I was doing stuff for football as well, we got to talking a bit there, and you offered me to do basketball in the winter. We did that, and now we're moving on doing this and all the football stuff in the fall.
It's an exciting time, isn't
Yeah.
it? I have to bring up my first game at Lock Haven because it's a very memorable one. It was a field hockey game, Charlotte E. Smith Field. Half of my equipment didn't work. So the broadcast, usually field hockey games, they're on the Bear website and
Yep.
on the stream. The Bear website, just wasn't working. So I didn't use anything. Everything was only on the stream. It was a field hockey game. It was my first ever field hockey game. It goes to overtime. And I'm going to be complete transparent. I'm on my phone. I'm like, okay, how does field hockey overtime work? I'm like, listen, I do research. I know the sport in and out. I'm like, I didn't think about overtime because it's like,
How often is that
how
gonna
often does
happen?
overtime happen
Yeah.
in field hockey? You know, they get some goals in there. It's like 2-2. It goes to overtime. The game starts as I'm still reading the rules. I think at one point I was really like, oh, there's golden goal in field hockey overtime. Who would have thought? And then overtime runs out. And I'm like, okay, what happens after overtime? You know, I'm talking to Doug Spatafor, who
Yep.
was in the building at the same time, and everything. I'm like, hey, how does this work? How does this work? And I can recall specifically saying, hey, Doug, I know how it works, but I just want a second opinion. Because,
Yeah.
you don't want to admit
Yeah.
you don't know what you're doing, right? So it goes to a penalty shootout. And Lock Haven beats, I think it might have been Ryder or Lehigh, one of those Division
Yeah.
One schools. They win in a penalty shootout, and that was my first ever Lock Haven game.
Well, Nick, now I can tell you for the first time, I'm learning that there's a penalty shootout in field hockey. I never knew that. That's when I remember I did lacrosse for the first time. That's what happened to me. Was I was doing the clock, and they would throw up the X, and I was like, I don't know what that means. I've never, my high school doesn't have lacrosse. I've never seen that. What does that mean? So I have the rule book. I think there's probably still a photo of it in my camera roll somewhere of the PDF file of the rule book of lacrosse, trying to find out when do I stop the clock? The ball goes out of bounds. That doesn't stop the clock. Okay, sure. So when do I stop the clock? What does a red card mean in this? What does a yellow card mean in this? Because coming from soccer, red card to me is you're out of the game. You're just done. It's not how it works in lacrosse. So it's
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
I understand
Because
what
there's
you
green
mean,
cards.
though.
I'm like, wait, what the?
Yeah.
Did they put it in the washer or something? Why is the yellow card green? But they got green cards in that too.
Yeah, so I definitely know where you're coming from of looking at it and being like, this is a new sport. I'm not entirely just looking at the rule book to try to figure out what's going on.
And I just want to say too, that field hockey quickly became. That was my first time ever doing a field hockey game. It quickly became one of my favorite sports to broadcast.
It's
I'm
so
going to be
much
very
fun.
transparent. It's so fun. I love the European and South American culture that's associated with it, like the way they come out onto the field, like I compare it to a soccer match. But I love the tradition of the sport. I love the way they come out. We're going to actually have a field hockey preview coming up as well. But that was the final year of Pat Rudy's tenure, legendary head coach involved with Lock Haven field hockey. Since then, Anna Rogers has taken the helm, still trying to get the reboot going. But field hockey and lacrosse, ironically enough, became two of my favorite sports to really broadcast within Lock Haven. You go into basketball, you're going into everything, and it just became a very fun time.
Yeah, and field hockey is one of my favorite ones to watch. Field hockey was one that I wasn't too familiar with. I had a friend in high school who talked about field hockey here. That's actually how in high school I learned that we were Division One because they were talking about they had a Division One offer from Lock Haven, and I'm like, they're not Division One. I knew they were in wrestling at the time, but I had no idea they were in field hockey. But yeah, field hockey and lacrosse are two of the more fun ones to watch that I didn't know were fun to watch until I got here and started watching them.
You know what? I think we got to get right into it, don't we?
Yeah.
Field hockey
Go for it.
preview, right? I know it's the first episode, but we already have a sport that is beginning for Lock Haven within the next week. By the time this comes out on Tuesday, Lock Haven field hockey starts another year. Is it the I don't want to rank pedigree and prestige among Lock Haven sports, but I don't think you can talk about Lock Haven athletics without discussing the field hockey team. It's one of the most notable teams. It's one of the longest, it's one of the largest programs for this university. And of course, and this is kind of, the elephant in the room, it's the other Division I sport after wrestling.
Exactly,
So it's such a high pedigree sport. It's such an important sport for Lock Haven. And with all that being said, it's a sport that is in a little bit of a rebuild period.
Yeah, like you said, they're the other Division I sport, and field hockey in Pennsylvania is really good and has been for a few years. I mean, you look at the Division II level; it is dominated at the top by PSAC schools. I think Kutztown finished in the top, Slippery Rock finished at the top. I think IUP finished near the top last year of the PSAC.
Didn't Westchester
the
win the
Westchester
national
was really good
championship
too. Yeah. So, and this is on a national level that PSAC schools are ranked as high as they are, and Lock Haven is even a step above that. But yeah, this is going to be a really interesting year for them, coming off what was a really rough year last year. You're looking at the program now to be like, it's time to see the steps back towards. It's time to see a progression forwards versus from last year.
I want to start this preview for the program for field hockey with this. Right off the air, before we got started, we're talking about Jersey Shore football, right? We were talking about Jersey Shore football. Myself, Nicholas Severini, Ryan States, we're going to be doing that this year. And the big word that came up for this season for Jersey Shore football was progress. And I think one thing that NIL at the college level has done is fans have short memories.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not expected anymore to have rebuilding years.
No.
You're expected to be good all the time. You're Penn State football. You need to be good all the time.
Yep.
Every single year with the portal, yada, yada, yada. And I think people sometimes try to translate that to every sport. Why is my Division III women's soccer team not improving, right? And it comes back to this with this field hockey program, and this is going to be the main thing I look at because, can I be very honest with you, Ryan?
Yeah,
I'm not going to give a record prediction. I'm not going to give how they're going to do in the conference prediction. The main thing I'm looking at this season, Ryan, is progress.
Yep.
This is the third year of the Anna Rogers era, but really it's her second because she got the job in her first year a month before the season. Mm-hmm. So really this is only even her second recruiting class. How can you judge a program under a new era by 2 recruiting classes? To me, that doesn't make sense. And maybe I'm being too positive. Maybe I'm giving too much leeway for the program, but I think an effort to sit back a little bit and let this program develop the old-fashioned way might be what is best, and it's going to be what I personally look for this season.
Yeah, Nick, you're absolutely right. I mean, when you look at, kind of peeling back the curtain, when you look at college programs, 90% of them are what you would call a window program, which means you are building towards a certain window, and when that window closes, you are building towards the next one. It is not you're going to be good every single year no matter what. It is, hey, we're going to build towards 2027. And then after 2027, we might take some lumps for a few years. And then we'll build towards 2031. Like, it comes in windows. And I think Lock Haven is building towards that window. They're not there yet. They're trying to get there. Where maybe in, say, 2026 or 2027, they're a team that's competing in the A10 conference to be at the top of that conference. That's how most of the time it works. I'll draw you an unfair parallel when talking about, Anna Rogers, this is her second recruiting class. An unfair parallel would be what happened with Lock Haven football, where you come in the second year and they won 5 games. Where did this come from? That was an anomaly. That does not happen. It is very rare for that kind of large jump to happen. It happens in progression. So for Lock Haven this year, all they have to do is be a little bit better than they were last year, and that'll bring positive momentum. That'll get recruits to commit because it's a program on an upward trajectory.
Lock Haven field hockey coming off of a 2024 season in which they went 4-15 with a 2-5 record. By the way, people talking about like last year being rough, they only won 1 less game than they did in 2023. So it's not as if there was a bit like it's a downward trend, with a new coach and everything, but it's not as if they fell down the earth. And the other important thing too, 2 of their 4 wins came in conference.
Yep.
They went 2-5 in conference,
which is not bad. That's not a bad conference record. I mean, being 2-5 in conference, that shows that you are still competing. It's not like they can't compete in the A10. They are competing in the A10.
The issue with the A10 is that it's only getting better. You've got St. Joe's, you've got VCU. Those are always the 2 teams at the top. And then you jump to the bottom, you've got your Davidsons of the world. You've got those types of teams. And I think what Lock Haven has done the last 3 years, even in the last year, the Pat Rudy era, in which they finished in 3rd place, they've always been in that middle part.
Yep.
They've never been the worst team in the A10. Since I've been doing it, they've never been the best team. And I think really people kind of overestimate the record. Because when you think about, when you really put your thinking cap on, it's not as if they've digressed. They're still in that middle pack. And it's a big middle pack, but they're still in that middle pack.
And this isn't like a professional sports league where being in the middle is a bad thing. Me being a Steelers fan, I can remember for years being frustrated at being in the middle. That's not what happens in college. In college, the more you win, the more recruits you get. And they are still winning. Like you said, 4-15. But again, that 2-5 record in conference, finishing mid-table, that's still a relatively good year. There were schools at the bottom of the A10 that would have preferred to have that year versus what Lock Haven had. So this is not like it's a program that has completely cratered. Like you said, it's taken a step back, but it's not something that's unfixable in the coming years that, in 2 years we might say, oh, they're 3rd in the conference again, and that won't come out of nowhere. That'll be a very predictable thing to happen.
9-27 in their last 2 seasons in total, so very similar actually when it comes down to it. Much better in conference, and this is something that Anna Rogers has done. I want to ask you this from a sporting perspective, not exactly field hockey. This is going to be the 2nd year of a schedule where, I wouldn't say it was her, I don't know who did this, where they have just loaded the schedule with teams. They start this Friday against Syracuse.
Yeah.
Syracuse starts your season. You've got Colgate, who competes in the Patriot League, iffy. You've got Georgetown. You've got Indiana. Your first 7 or so games are on the road because you stocked up a lot of home games last year. So before we get neck deep into the schedule, the loading up on the out-of-conference, does there reach a point where you do a little too much?
I think so, but I don't think they've hit it. I think this is a really young Lock Haven team. I'm sure we'll get into it at some point. This is a very young team. And sometimes what's best for young teams is to go out and say, hey, we're going to play the best of the best right away, and you're going to see what Division I field hockey looks like early on, because they're going to be playing a lot of freshmen. There's going to be a lot of players where their first game is against Syracuse on the road in New York. And that is going to be a tough ask for them to go play that game, but it's a good learning experience for them of these are the type of games, these are the caliber of games that we want to compete in. Here's where we are right now, and it shows you, what it really does is it shows you how far you need to go to get where you want to be.
Definitely going to be watching it before Jersey Shore football that same Friday. I might be watching it with squinted eyes sometimes because that Syracuse team is one of the best in the country. The rankings have not officially come out, but Syracuse, one of the best. When you want to see where you're at in terms of Division I, you play that team. You were talking about the youthful exuberance of this team. This team lost some solid talent. Some of the last of the Pat Rudy era in terms of players, Alexis Kern, Costanzo, Lopez, Zabala. That's the first and second leading point scorers from last season. That's not an easy replacement. Also lost Brooke Hofsass, who I think was such a utility player. Listed as a forward. She wound up as maybe a wide midfielder, for lack of a better term. She kind of did a little bit of everything. You also lost a starter on the back line in Aline Bose. And like you said, a very young team. When you look at the roster as a whole, if you really want to break it down, there are only 4 seniors. Now, 4 very important seniors, 2 on the back line, Megan Bepler, Florence DeCroon, who are going to be very important. Then, of course, you have Kelsey Felix, goalkeeper, redshirt senior. 4 seniors, but I don't think it's hyperbole to call one of the more important senior classes because when you come back to progress, it starts with building a culture. And we're going to talk about what this team actually needs to do to improve on last season. But I think these seniors, they're expected, all four of them, to be real leaders on this team this year.
When you talked about, going back to the youth part of it, I have here 14 of the 23 players on roster are underclassmen this year. To those who don't know, that means either you're a freshman or a sophomore. So those four seniors are going to be dependent on to be the leaders of this group. And I think the big one, and I think, Nick, we both have her listed on the notes here, is Kelsey Felix is going to have to be the one that I think is going to need to lead this team this season. She's going to need to be like Felix the Cat Potvin, the Leafs goaltender in the 90s.
Oh, what a name drop.
Honestly,
oh, my goodness.
I felt good about that when I was doing the notes. I thought about it. I was like, that's a good one. I do wonder if Felix's nickname for the team is Felix the Cat because, obviously a famous cartoon character or in a book or something or other, and
That's
then
the
obviously the Leafs goaltender in the 90s. But no, Kelsey Felix is going to need to be the rock for this team this year, and I think she will be. She was really solid for them last year, 124 saves in total and recorded one shutout. So they're going to need her to do that again if they want to have a good year.
Her debut appearance, actually, no, it wasn't. My apologies. But that penalty shootout we talked about, the first broadcast I ever did for Lockhaven for the Bear, she was the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And I think that experience is going to be huge. When you talk about raw talent at the position, Felix is hands down the best in my opinion. Just an absolute stalwart on the back line. And she's been kept very busy, unfortunately, in the last couple of seasons. But that leads into my next point when you have Megan Bepler and Florence DeCroon. I want to talk about that defensive partnership on the back line because the biggest issue that the field hockey program had last season, if you can recall some of those previous games, they simply could not get it into the attacking third. Ryan, I'm telling you, there were certain games where it would take until the third quarter for them to really register a chance, a penalty corner, anything of the sort, because that midfield third was so, I don't want to say dominated, but they were unable to really get comfortable in terms of those games. I'm going to really turn to that defensive line because the best defenders are able to really dribble the ball up the pitch, to really drive the ball up. I'm expecting Bepler and DeCroon to really lead that, to keep that composure. The most important thing you can have, Ryan, for a back line, whether you're talking lacrosse, soccer, or field hockey, is composure. You've got Bepler and DeCroon who have been in this situation before. They've been starting for a while, Bepler especially. I'm expecting those two, along with Felix, to really determine how high this team goes talent-wise and success-wise.
Yeah, when you're looking at it from the defensive end, if you're going to have four seniors, Lockhaven has them where you want them. You want them on the defensive end, and you want them on the goalkeeper. Obviously, you'd like them everywhere, but if you can only choose two positions, those are the two you want them. And the reason for that is, like you said, is having composure and having confidence in your own ability. When you're a defenseman, you know you are the last line of defense. Like, that is back in the back of your mind constantly, that I cannot let them get past me because there is nothing behind me. If you're a midfielder and you get beat, it's okay, well, there's still the defenseman behind me that can maybe pick up some slack. If you're a defenseman, you don't have that. So you need to be confident in your own abilities, and those two are. And I think those two are going to be really good to help out Felix a lot and hopefully keep some of the shots out of the net last year that Felix was getting peppered with.
In terms of what to expect above that defensive line, the first name that comes up for me is Madison Friend, sophomore from Royersford, Pennsylvania. She's one of the leading minute getters on the team last season. Only scored twice out of 11 shots. This is going to be a very inexperienced front line. I think it's very fair to say, Ryan. When you're looking at where goals are going to come from, Madison Friend, I think, is the first name that sticks out to me, along with Melanie Beal. Melanie Beal, you expect her to be a little bit more in the midfield, but Beal and Friend are the two that stick out to me in terms of goal scoring, creating chances, and finishing.
When it seems like Friend is the one that everybody's excited about. I remember talking with Doug Spatafor briefly about it, and he was super excited about that. And I do think that having that youth up front is a good thing for them. It's going to mean that they are fast and they are hungry. They want to prove themselves right away, and I think that's going to be a good way for them to do that because those two are going to be dependent on to score goals for them. Like you said, Nick, it's going to be those two that need to put up points, and Lockhaven struggled putting up points last year, and I think if they can start off hot, it could be a real snowball effect for those two.
To round out some of the sophomores, Sian Kvecki, Riley Wasmer, a couple names that stick out from last season, Haley Kvecki, as well as the list continues on. For me, the freshman class, it's one of those you're going to see it when you see it.
Yep.
There's not a lot of information on high school freshmen. I will say that the class itself is very unique because of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 freshmen that are on the roster, 2 are goalkeepers. So really it's a small class, but you're looking for quality over quantity in that regard. So you've got 4 non-goalkeeping freshmen, Shea Dyer, Eva Drumbor, Ainsley Flynn, and Tatiana Kinevich. That was not pronounced correctly. Thankfully, Ryan, we'll have the pronunciation guide by the first home game. Quality over quantity. That's going to be what I look at most.
And I think that's the right way to recruit, especially when you're looking at, I mean, these coaches are recruiting. They're not just recruiting for the next year. They are recruiting 3-4 years down the line, and specifically only getting, like you said, 6 freshmen, and 2 of them are goalkeepers. Lockhaven knows they're only graduating 4 seniors. I mean, the portal can do what the portal can do to a team. Maybe they end up losing a lot more than they thought they would, but only taking 6 freshmen means that they were focusing on what they wanted. They weren't trying to get, oh, you're okay at goal scoring, we'll bring you on. They were looking at, you can do this specific thing well for us, and that's why we want you. And with bigger classes, you kind of don't get that as much. So I really like their approach they took this year of taking quality over quantity.
I'm going to put you on the spot now because we're going to talk back at the schedule. October 24th, home against Penn State. Who are you rooting for?
Oh, I'll root for Lockhaven.
Okay, I didn't know how far that allegiance went. You were very quick with
my rule for any sport is Penn State is my Division I team. Lockhaven is my Division II team.
But Lockhaven's Division I.
If they're in Division I, it's Lockhaven all the way. If for wrestling, if Penn State wins the national championship like they have done more often than not, you won't hear me complaining about it. I'll be happy for it, but I'd much rather see Lockhaven win than Penn State.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of wrestling. What Lockhaven versus Penn State wrestling would look like in a dual meet. That's going to be.
It would be a mess.
Why don't they do that? I mean, okay. Besides the obvious reason that Penn State is simply the best and they will only take the best.
Yes.
But Lockhaven's got ranked wrestlers in their arsenal. It's not as if it's like. It's not as if. I don't think Lockhaven will put up a goose egg. Maybe they will. I don't know. But it's not as if it's like. It's not like it's, West Virginia against Missouri Valley State in men's basketball, which is an actual game, by the way.
Is it really?
Yes, Mississippi Valley State.
That's a good pool.
It's a home game.
That's a good pool.
But if West Virginia can host Mississippi Valley State in a home game, I think Penn State can host Lockhaven for a wrestling match. That's just my opinion.
Especially because, I mean, why not have that as the first match of the season? You're 45 minutes up the road. It's an easy travel. I don't know how it works for wrestling if they pay smaller teams like they do in football. I'd assume Lockhaven might get some financial kickback for going to Penn State. But I don't know. I've always wondered that. I think it would be a cool idea. I know Lockhaven and Penn State do have some history. Lockhaven stole one of Penn State's wrestlers back in the 90s, whose name I cannot remember. He's known as one of the best high school wrestlers ever. He won a national championship at Lockhaven. My dad was actually here when they recruited him.
Oh, wow.
I remember he told a story of, man, I really wish I could remember this name. But I remember he told a story of.
Put you on the spot on episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, I might be able to find it. But yeah, I remember my dad telling a story of being in the sports information room, because my dad worked with sports information at the time when it happened, and how everybody immediately lost their minds, because this was a kid who, I think 4-time PA state champ out of high school, went to Penn State, was one of the best wrestlers in the nation, and then competed for a national championship with Penn State, and then seemingly out of nowhere transferred down to little old Lockhaven. Won a national championship here. So it's not like there's not any wrestling history here to be had. I think it would be a good idea for those two to wrestle. I've always thought it would be a cool idea. I think you and me are both looking up the
looking it up.
I wish I could remember.
While we look it up,
it starts with a K.
I want to tie back to field hockey just real quick while we look up the national champion. This is okay. I know we weren't going to talk about records, but we have to
Kerry
finish.
Colott, that's who it is.
Kerry Colott, yes. Legendary. Last national champion.
Yes.
1997.
Yes, my dad has a newspaper on it on our basement wall. That's why I was like, I should know this. I see it every day I go to the basement, but.
Over/under 1.5 conference wins. They were 2-5 last season. They were 3-4 the year before.
Over/under
is where
over
for it.
If they won 2 games, if they won 2 conference games last year, I'll tell you what, I think they'll win 3. I think they'll be 3 and
he's
4
putting
in
the money where the
conference.
mouth is. How about that?
I'm a very optimistic person when it comes to these things. I always like to overbet because if I'm right, it looks really good. But I do think this team will be better than it was last year. I think this is a team that has taken their lumps the past 2 years, and I think they've grown from it, and I think they've learned from it. And I think they're going to come out, and I think they're going to surprise some people.
I am the complete opposite with
Yes,
you
you
in terms.
are.
I
Yes,
am a
you are.
very negative person. I'm a very under promise over deliver person. That being said, I still think they go over as well.
Okay.
I think that from what I've heard, their spring training, so to speak, their spring schedule, they were able to solve a lot of those problems in terms of possession. Now they just need to create chances. And, there's a real chance. I'm sorry they start 1-6 this season.
Oh, yeah.
With how brutal 2-5, 1-6, because of how brutal the start of their conference is. First home game is against Delaware. They would have already played a conference game already.
Yep.
But I think they'll sneak a Davidson. I think they'll sneak a LaSalle maybe on the road. I think they'll definitely beat St. Louis. St. Louis is always the bottom dweller. There's 3.
Yep, right
you know
there.
what I mean? And you have yourself a little bit of insurance. So I think they'll get multiple conference wins. And, again, wins aren't what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
It's going to be if they're able to build a culture, if they're able to establish it. I want to see a mature team. Even though they only have 4 seniors, I want to see maturity on the field.
Well, and like we talked about with goal scoring last year kind of being a struggle for them, goal scoring is such a fickle thing. It can change year to year for seemingly no reason. It is one of those things that there are times where you have good goal scorers and you can't score. And there are times where you maybe don't have the best goal scorers and you're one of the best goal scoring teams in the conference. It's one of those things that it's so fickle that it can swing year to year, and I'm just taking a bet that I think this year it swings positive for them.
All right, past the halfway mark, that is your field hockey preview. Time to pay the bills. Coming up when you tune in on Tuesday, when this comes out on Tuesday. Coming up on Friday, Jersey Shore High School football has their season opener on the Bear Country Sports Network. The Bulldogs starting off the start of the 2025 football season against Dallas. Coverage starts at 6:30, a 7 p.m. kickoff, live on the Bear Country Sports Network. You can listen online at bearcountry999.com. You can tune into the radio, 99.9, and you can watch us on YouTube on the Bear Country 999 YouTube channel. And by the way, if you're tuning in one way or the other to this, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on the radio, you can listen to us multiple different ways. We will be live Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. That is going to be when this episode is published. You can also watch us on YouTube. Watch our beautiful faces for radio talk about it here in the Bear Country basement. And you can also listen to us on the Bear Country Podbean channel. There we go. Podbean. How about that? You want to listen to us on the go? That is how you do it. This is once again the Haven Nation show live on the Bear Country Sports Network. We're back here for the next segment. So we've talked about our introduction. We talked about our field hockey preview. Here's what I want to do. We're not talking about football for a very specific reason. That is going to be on the football preview show. That is next week. Next Tuesday is when it comes out.
And that's going to be a big one. That's going to be an in-depth one.
Oh, that's going to be in-depth.
Yeah.
That entire episode's all football.
Yep.
But if we want to sneak in a little bit, I wanted to make a list, right? We talked about, I'm very big on lists. 5 programs you are most looking forward to watching this season. I'm not looking at yours.
Yeah, I'm
not looking at yours.
I got a little sneak peek of yours, but I don't remember the order. So
I'm going to give 5 to 1, okay? And I'm just going to go my 5, then you'll go your 5.
Okay, is that how you want to do it? Yep.
Number 5, bit out there because the Bear actually doesn't broadcast this sport. I'm going to go with softball.
Alrighty.
Softball. Here's the deal. All the history with that program, all of the pedigree with that program. I've been told it's a very young team coming up this season. And obviously they compete in the PSAC, one of the best programs in all of the country for Division II sports, and that includes softball. I'm ready to get on the softball bandwagon. I just saw Dave Stratton, Karen Stratton. They were just down in the base. I'm ready to leverage some softball games. I'm down for stick and ball sports. And we already have lacrosse, right? That's one stick and ball sport. But I'm ready to jump on the softball bandwagon. Friend of the show, Austin Milius, his sister, is on the team as well. The hot corner third base, from what I remember correctly.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Listen, America's pastime, baseball and softball. And frankly, the softball team has so much history. I'm going with them. I'm going all in on them. The spring I'm more open. I'm going all in. I'm going to be a fan. I'm ready to invest in softball this year.
I will tell you what, Nick. I did not remember that you had softball at 5. That is a very fun inclusion from you. working with sports information, I worked a lot of the softball games, doing anything from some taking photos on the camera, which that was one I had to have our good friend Ashley Lawson train me on in the moment on how to do camera.
Friend of the
never done
show,
it before.
Ash Lawson.
Absolutely.
Now working, by the way.
Yes, she is.
At, oh
Albany.
my gosh, I hope I get this right.
Albany.
Albright.
Albright.
It's Albright.
Yes.
No, we can't get that wrong.
It's
Can't
true.
get that wrong. Albright College,
Albright.
now in communications. Albright got a good one. You said Albany?
But I was AL. I think they're both in New York, if I remember correctly, or near that region. I think it might be Northwest Pennsylvania. So it's
Albright's Reading.
Is it Reading? Okay,
Reading.
so close-ish. AL, same thing. But no, softball's a lot of fun to watch, and that team last year was a lot of fun to watch, and I think they're going to be, like I said, a lot of fun to watch again this year too. That's a surprising pick, but I really do like it.
Number 4 for me. I'm just going to do my list and we'll do yours.
Yep.
That works. Number 4, football. Not higher,
A little lower
but
than I
I
thought
have
would
it at
be.
number 4. Now, I got to tell you, preview for the football preview, if I knew when I made this list, because I made this list a little bit ago,
Yep.
if I knew how much positivity was coming out of the practices, I probably would have put it higher, but I have it at number 4.
Okay.
Simple, new coach,
Yep.
but I think it's a little bit of a rebuild, a little bit of a reset. I know you've bringing back a big quarterback. We're not going to talk about football too much. I just want to say I have that at number 4. Number 3, men's wrestling. I think this is another big year for them.
Yep.
I think they bring back a lot of talent. They have a really loaded freshman class from what I've heard.
Yes, they do.
Couple state champion, one state champion that's coming in, I believe.
One, I think, yes. The name escapes me at the moment, but I think you're correct with one.
We'll know in the winter.
Yeah.
State champion coming up. They're just bringing back a lot of talent. I'm ready to see. I'm willing to look at how much they bring back. I'm looking to see how some of the heavyweights do. I'm excited. Excited for wrestling. Of course, has the best crowds.
New assistant coach now, too,
assistant
with
coach.
Gavin Hoffman coming in to be a grad assistant. Gavin Hoffman from the area. I forget where he's from, but I know he's from
Montoursville.
I say
Williamsport,
very
yes.
close to here. I do know that. So he'll be one of the new assistant coaches, one of the grad assistants. So I think that'll be fun for them.
Number 2, lacrosse. Let's do it.
Yep.
Let's do it,
Yep.
lacrosse. I have seen this program get better and better the more I've called them. First lacrosse game I ever did, or one of the first, they upset a ranked team in Mercyhurst, who's now in Division 1.
Yep.
But lacrosse, there's excitement there. There's excitement in that program. I love a good spring sport, and I'm already all in on softball, but I'm saving room on the main course for lacrosse.
Yep.
I think this team is great. This team brings back a lot of talent, and I think we're going to see this team, with the way this program continues to improve, dare I say, potentially start to contend in the PSAC. I'm ready. If I had to guess,
Throw it out. Go for it.
actually, who the next conference champion is going to be, I have lacrosse in my top 3 sports.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Number 2, I would put men's wrestling.
Yep.
And number 1, I would have my number 1 team that I'm most excited
Yep.
for. That is, of course, women's basketball. And that should be the answer to this question.
Yes.
This should have been the easiest number 1. Women's basketball, they are the catalyst for success for this program. They are what carries this program in terms of the PSAC on their backs, with just how talented they are. Love the coach, love the players, love the crowds that they're starting to get, and I love the fact that they're better than anyone they play against in the East. I am all in on women's basketball. If I was not a broadcaster, Ryan, I'd have season tickets yesterday to go see this team. And yes, I'll leave it at that. I was going to take a jab, but I'm not going to take a jab at any other programs. Women's basketball, that is the clear-cut number 1. Ryan, what do you got?
And well, next, first let's talk about women's basketball. That is the least surprising answer. I think anyone who follows Lock Haven, they are the most fun team to watch. I will say, bar none, they are the most fun team to watch. And they were last year. That game last year against Bloomsburg, the setup to that game, the playoff game, that was my favorite game that I've ever seen. Any sport. Doesn't matter what sport you pick, that playoff game against Bloomsburg was my favorite for so many reasons. But I'll get into mine. My number 5, similar to yours, just a little bit different. I'm going to go to the other side of the ball and stick game. I'm going to go baseball as my number 5. And the reason for that is
That's brave of you.
it is a program that I think has taken their lumps, and they have really taken their lumps the past few years. It has been a rough go for baseball over the past 2 years, to say the least. But
I'm looking for the reason to get excited here, Ryan.
I'll tell you.
You're not
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
I want to hear it. Let's hear it.
I believe in Coach Stover, Keith Smoke Stover. I think he is a really good coach. He has tried his best to get the most out of his teams, and he really has the past 2 years. And I think this is a program, I look at it from the perspective of it can't go down. It can only go up from here, and I enjoy watching that rise up. Maybe not when they're at the top. When they're at the top, they're at the top. I like watching the rise to get to that point, and PSAC baseball is some of the best baseball around. You have schools like Millersville, who's really good, Seton Hill, Seton Hill, right? Seton Hill's really good. I always get Seton Hill and Seton Hall confused.
Seton Hill, yes.
Seton Hill is really good. IUP is really good, and I think Lock Haven is on their way to getting back to where they used to be, which is back to being competitive in the PSAC. I think this year they're going to take a really big step forward, and I think, to me, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I just want to say, too, a bit of a PSAC nod, too. I covered the Williamsport Crosscutters baseball.
Yes.
They always have a guy from the PSAC on their team, at least. I think this year was from Seton Hill. One of their best pitchers 2 years ago was from Pitt Johnstown, and then got transferred to Cincinnati that same year. So, PSAC, I've heard it from multiple people. It's better than Division I teams.
Yes,
it's better than multiple Division I teams. Like some teams can go into the Patriot League and not just do well, but dominate.
There are teams in the PSAC that have MLB, scouts look at their teams. I know Millersville was a big one, that they had some MLB scouts come down and look at their team. That's how good that these teams are. And my last point with baseball is, if there was any time for Lock Haven baseball to take a step forward, it is after this year. If you were following high school baseball in the area in the spring, it was as good as I have ever seen any area Bennett baseball. Bald Eagle won their district. Central Mountain competed for their district title. Hollidaysburg competed for the district title. Williamsport, I think, was in contention for the district title. There were so many. Bellefonte won their district title for both baseball and softball. There were all the teams in the area.
There were a couple that went all the way to states.
Yes,
I mean, that for a fact.
I know doing
baseball and softball.
Doing things with the newspaper, the Lock Haven Express, I had jobs well after school was over because all the teams in the areas were going on runs to the states. We're going on runs to the district title game. So Lock Haven has the talent, or has the ability to recruit all of that massive talent in the area, and they have an advantage over a lot of the PSAC schools with how close that talent is to them. I think this year is going to be a building year, and I think next year, if they can get some of those kids to commit, could be a huge jump up for them. But anyway, moving on to my number 4 is...
You convinced me, by the way.
I'm ready. Glad I did. I knew
I'm ready to save time on my laptop screen for that. I know you sold it.
That was going to be a hard sell.
I'm ready for it.
This one shouldn't be. And this is not just a team that is on the rise, because they're already really good. This is a sport that is on the rise. And one of my favorite sports to watch, and it's women's wrestling, is my number 4.
I forgot women's wrestling. I would have absolutely put women's wrestling in. I literally forgot. I forgot about women's wrestling.
And that is not so much as even about the team. And the team is really good here at Lock Haven. They have been for the past few years. The sport of women's wrestling is getting so much bigger so fast. I know many of the major high schools in the area are adding women's wrestling. I know my high school just added women's wrestling for the first time ever. And it's going to be recognized as an NCAA sport here in the coming years. Lock Haven might go Division I for that as well, with how they've competed as well as they have at that level. I think women's wrestling, Coach Lally, that is a really good program. That is going to be a program that, as women's wrestling continues to take the rise that it's going on, is going to be something that's going to be must-watch for Lock Haven fans.
Wow. I can't believe I forgot women. I'm actually very upset at that.
That was the one that
You know why? It's because there's one home game a year.
Yeah.
That's why. It's like, I want to see more. I want to see more of this team. And I think once the NCAA gets established and everything, that will happen.
Agreed. And then once the NCAA and all that stuff and it becomes a sport, I'm really interested to see what the school does with that program. Does it become a Division I program? It competes at that level, and I think it should be. The question is, will it? And that's going to be something that's going to take time. But anyway, my number 3 will go from the women's side of wrestling to the men's side of wrestling. Men's wrestling, just like you, is my number 3. And my top 3 were about as even as they could be, because men's wrestling, it is so much fun to watch. There's a reason it gets the draw that it does. There's a reason it gets the attention that it does around here. We are in the state of wrestling, and we are in a region that is really good at wrestling. Lock Haven obviously sent multiple players to NCAAs last year. I think off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, it was 6 or 7 last year that went, something
I think
along
it was around
those
7.
lines.
I think it was on the upper end.
Anthony Noto, 2-time All-American, just graduated. It's becoming a new era of this program, even under the same coach. When you lose a wrestler like Noto, it changes how the team looks. But they have some really good talent. Tucker Hogan, freshman of the year last year, I think is going to take another step forward. He's a guy that was a PA state champion that committed here. Lock Haven Wrestling is maybe the 5th or 6th best program in the state of wrestling. Pennsylvania, that's what we're known for, is wrestling. And when you are the maybe 5th or 6th best program in the state at that is something that is no small feat at all. They are so much fun to watch. That game against Ryder last year was a blast to watch at home.
Big one.
All of their games. It was Wisconsin that they beat at home. That was the other one I remember.
That was a big one.
That was a huge win.
Twitter was fun after that one.
Oh, it was so much fun. And that arena, that was one of the games that gives you the pit of your stomach feeling when you're watching the game. Not even from watching the game and being nervous at how it's going to turn out, but from just the energy in the arena. Another one of my favorite games that I can remember was a men's wrestling game, and that was the game at Clarion. That was some of the best energy I've ever felt in any arena.
That was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago, yep.
That was a big one. That was when Noto lost.
That was when Noto lost to the unranked wrestler. And
great visiting crowd, too. You give them their flowers after the
incredible
fact.
students. I was on camera for that game. So I was sitting all the way at the top of the press box, which for anyone that knows me, I have a really bad fear of heights. So not fun. But I remember the energy in that arena was so incredibly awesome. Men's wrestling, it's a must-go-to event. If you're ever going to go to a Lock Haven sport, you want to see what Lock Haven culture is like. I think men's wrestling is the one you go to first. Now, the top two I wrestled with. I have a lot of personal ties to the one, and the other is probably my favorite one to watch. And that's the one I'm going at number 2 is women's basketball.
Oh, that's devastating. That's devastating.
Can I tell you, Nick, I could flip-flop these right now.
So football's number 1.
Football's number 1
I knew
for
football
me.
would be number 1. That's diabolical.
Women's basketball, it is right here. I mean, it is about as neck and neck as it can be. The only reason football gets the edge for me is because of the ties that I have with, that was kind of my foot in the door to all of Lock Haven athletics. So that is the only reason it's ahead for me, because women's basketball is the most fun sport to watch here, and I really don't think it's close. Those games are electric. That team is electric. This will be a good year for them. Talking earlier when we talked about field hockey, I talked about window programs. This is the window for them. This year is the year that they have to win the PSAC. They have to go as far as they can before they start to rebuild. This is the year for them. All of their best players came back from last year for the most part. They're all seniors. This is the year that they have to get it done, and I think they will get it done. You mentioned about talking about the next team that would be to win a conference title. I think it's women's basketball, and I think it's this year. But no, number 1 for me is football. I think this is a program that you said it's an interesting year for them because you bring in a new coach, but it's kind of the same culture
because
because
the same, isn't
the
it?
coach
That's
is your
what it is.
offensive coordinator. You lost one coach from last year other than the head coach. The only one you lost was the defensive line coach. Everybody else stayed behind. They got the big recruit from the local quarterback. This is going to be a fun year for them to watch. Time will tell how the year goes. I think it'll go positive. I've heard a lot of good things out of camp. But no, football for me is number 1. That program is so much fun to watch. I owe them a lot, and I think they're going to be a fun watch this year.
And with that, we're out of time for this
Yes, we
episode of the Haven Nation Show. Episode 1 in the books, Ryan. How about that?
It's excited, man. I'm really excited.
Over-under, 19.5 women's basketball wins.
Over.
Wow, you're sold on.
I think they're gonna win PSACs. I think they're gonna go far in Division 2.
Jersey Shore football this Friday. The football preview is next week. This is episode 1 of the Haven Nation Show alongside Ryan States. I'm Nicholas Severini. We'll see you next time.